Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And in this video, I wanted to do somewhat of a recap from the testing that I've done over the last 2 days, anecdotally, comparing the LTE network to the 5G network. Now, I know I released 2 videos yesterday showing you footage of the how lopsided that can be, right? In many cases, I know it is area and location dependent. But in my testing, and that's anecdotally, it's not scientific, about 75 to 80%, maybe more of the times that I was testing 5G versus LTE, 5G was the winning side of the network in speed, performance. That includes latency, jitter, everything across the board. 5G was the better network to be on. And I know it's the same network, but when T-Mobile goes and upgrades a site, now that site has more spectrum on air, but it's all geared towards 5G in a big way. And you saw that in my testing. I was in a very, very busy area. You even saw that because the 5G wasn't even that great speed-wise, but it still performed from a user experience point better than the LTE. The 2 devices I had with me, I tested with the iPhone 2020 SE. I also had an iPhone 11 there too. They both were buffering. FaceTime was pixelated. Calls were dropping. I had no such issues on the 13 Pro Max with the 5G. So like I mentioned in the videos yesterday, that's literally the difference between LTE and 5G is your phone working and not working. And on the percentages that I just mentioned, about 50 to 60% of the times that I was testing the LTE versus the 5G, LTE was below 5 megabits a second. Now, again, and I'll say this in this video as the recap, I am just recommending a 5G device or to be on that part of the network. I'm not forcing anybody to go get a device. I know some of you are not going to be able to afford a 5G device at this point in time. I am just simply making a recommendation. Also, the next recommendation I do want to make for you, the consumer, if any of your LTE devices are on the Magenta Max plan or have been upgraded to the Magenta Max, I would highly recommend to downsize those phones because the experience is not the same. Magenta Max is all about 4K, having unlimited amounts of data and not being prioritized. What sense does that make you paying for that when on the LTE side, the speeds are severely decreasing? And the phone that was tested in the videos you saw yesterday and one this morning, that they all are on the Magenta Max because I'm getting ready to upgrade them. If not, I would drop them down and just pay that extra $10 to upgrade my line to the Magenta Max. So you can't mix and match the plans on T-Mobile. What you can do is if you move your line to the Magenta Max, all the other lines go to the Magenta Max. But what you can do is just specifically upgrade your line for that extra $10 to the Magenta Max and leave the rest on the regular Magenta. So that way you don't pay that increase for something that the users on the LTE side can't really make use of. Now, I did see a few towers that were still doing 40, 50, 60 megabits a second. Don't get me wrong, but that percentage and ratio is very, very small. It's very small versus what I saw on 5G. 5G was the faster of the two. Like I said, probably 80+% of the time, everywhere I went around the city. So that's what I wanted to talk about in this recap to close out the weekend. I kind of wanted to make that a vocal point because T-Mobile is not really speaking about that. And they're really pushing you onto the 5G for that reason. They're not investing capital dollars to upgrade and enhance the LTE networks, right? If you're moving all of your spectrum to 5G, or you're allocating that mid-band, that's what you're seeing here in this article, that mid-band strategy. If you're moving all of that to 5G, the only way you're going to make the LTE network better is you're going to have to keep deploying sites, new towers with LTE spectrum on them, and new small cells with LTE spectrum on them. That is the only way you're going to make the LTE network better. If you're just upgrading your existing footprint and you're moving that spectrum to 5G, you're starving your LTE network. And that's something that Verizon and Verizon and AT&T are not doing at this point, right? Verizon's LTE network is still getting better, and AT&T's LTE network is still getting better. Why? Because they are still deploying LTE small cells. I've seen like another 5 Verizon small cells go up with CBRS. That's still on LTE. So what happens? The LTE network gets faster. It gets more decongested. Same with AT&T. They're deploying new towers that have LTE on them, and the LTE network gets better. T-Mobile is not really right now deploying many more sites other than the Keep sites, the Sprint Keep sites. And then, I am seeing a few small cells pop up here and there, but even those small cells have most of the spectrum on N41. They're deploying the N41 panels onto the small cells from the few that I've seen out of Florida. So again, like I said, to close out the video, my recommendation, upgrade to 5G if you are able to, for the better experience. I mean, this is not just, a couple of years ago, we were going from the S7 to the S8 and, 4x4 MIMO, going from 2x2 to 4x4 gave you a, 5 megabit per second increase, for example. No, this is a totally different network going from the LTE to the 5G, because the spectrum is the spectrum channel size, the bandwidth is much bigger. Now, I know there are still going to be areas that T-Mobile is going to have to deploy more of that N41 for that to come true. But, as they go through this year, I'm going to assume that they get to a very high percentage. In most markets, should be 80+% 5G deployed. But again, like I said, that's not going to drastically improve that LTE network. That LTE network is on the downtrend. Even with that PCS spectrum moved over to some areas, I know they gained an additional like 5 megahertz from that PCS from Sprint. It's not helping much. They did it here. It's not helping much, as you saw in the video. Here, the LTE is band 466 at 20, and then band 2 at 20. That's it. That's all there is. And the band 4 and 66 is one channel. I'm just referencing the MFBI, but it's actually just band 66 and band 2. 40 megahertz. That's it. That's all they have left on LTE, and then they got 5 megahertz of band 71, but that's not really helping at all. And on the T-Mobile towers that they deployed here, that got upgraded, they never deployed any of the Sprint band 41 spectrum on LTE. That all went straight to N41. And as the channel bandwidth increases on 5G, as we go to 100, 120, 140, that means band 41 is going to be removed anyway and moved over to 5G in areas where they did deploy band 41 on the LTE side. So let me know what you think about this. Again, this was just a recap of my findings over the last 2 days. Now, yours may be different. You may literally be in an area where LTE is still blazing fast. That is still a possibility. But for now, on a grand scale, nationwide, from what I've seen anecdotally, I'm going to make the assumption that T-Mobile's LTE network is on the downtrend, especially in a market the size of mine. On their market share, right? They have over 50% market share in this market. And the LTE network is just shot. It's not there anymore. It's not the experience of what it was when they were maintaining and actually pushing heavy capital dollars towards that LTE and improving it. Now that's all going to 5G and improving that. So again, upgrade a 5G device. The two LTE devices I have, they will be upgraded. One's going to a 12 Pro. The other will go to an iPhone SE 2, I believe is what they're calling it. And both of those are 5G capable. So make sure you guys stay tuned to the channel for more content coming this week. Should be a pretty busy next few weeks coming up. Got earnings, got Dish Analyst Day. So make sure you stay tuned, like, share, subscribe. Follow my social media outlets for more updates and interactions. This is Tyrone with Tech Life, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.